The emergency alarm echoed through the halls of Kepler Prime for the third time in 2 days. Commander Veltar of the Centauri Federation rushed through the corridors, his blue skin pale with worry. The other alien leaders were already gathering. In the great council chamber, their faces showing the same fear that kept him awake at night, the massive doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, representatives from across the galaxy sat in their assigned seats. The graceful ethereals floated, in their energy pods, their translucent bodies glowing with nervous light. The crystalline Vorthoks stood like living diamonds, their faces hard to read but their body language tense. The aquatic nautiloids moved slowly in their water-filled suits, their tentacles writhing with anxiety. General Crixon stepped forward. To address the assembly, his voice was steady, but everyone could hear the exhaustion in his words. Fellow council members, the situation has grown worse. The Zephrian hive mind has taken 3 more systems in the past week. Our combined fleets cannot stop them. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed the latest reports from the war zones. Entire planets had been stripped bare, their surfaces gray and lifeless. The Zephrians had consumed everything living, leaving only empty rocks floating in space. "How many ships have we lost?" asked Lyron, the ethereal diplomat. Her voice was soft, but it carried clearly through the chamber. 47 capital ships in the last month, Crixon replied. They adapt to our weapons faster than we can develop new ones. Every time we think we have found a weakness, they change and become stronger. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what those numbers meant. The Galactic Council had been the dominant force in this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Their fleets were the most advanced, their technology the most sophisticated. But against the Zephrians, none of that mattered. Veltar stood up slowly. What about the evacuation plans? Can we at least save the civilian populations? Move too fast, Crixon answered. They hit 3 systems at once, sometimes 4. We cannot protect everyone. Each world they take makes them stronger. They use the biomass to build more ships, breed more warriors. A Vorthok representative named Tizark spoke up, his crystal body ringing like a bell. Perhaps we should consider surrender. Negotiate with them. Find some way to coexist. They do not negotiate, Crixon said firmly. We have tried. You see, all other life is food, nothing more. The weight of their situation settled over the chamber like a dark cloud. The greatest civilizations in the galaxy were facing extinction, and they had no answer. Their best scientists, their finest military minds, their most advanced technology, all of it was useless against an enemy that treated the laws of warfare like suggestions. There must be something, Veltar said desperately. Some weapon we have not tried, some strategy we have not considered. General Crixon looked around the chamber, his eyes meeting each representative in turn. There is one possibility, but you will not like it. He activated another holographic display. This one showed a map of the galaxy with their current position. Marked in blue, as far out on the rim, in a region marked as unexplored, a single yellow dot blinked slowly. Intelligence reports suggest there is a species in this system that may be able to help us, Crixon continued. They call themselves humans. They come from a world designated Sol 3. Never heard of them? Muttered a nautiloid representative. That is because they are very new to space travel, Crixon explained. But our long-range scouts have detected something unusual about their home world. It appears to be what we classify as a Class 12 death world. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Death worlds were rare, and Class 12 was almost unheard of. Most species could barely survive on a Class V death world, and even then, only with advanced technology. That is impossible, said Lyran. Nothing evolves naturally on a Class 12 world. The environment would kill any developing species before they could gain intelligence. Yet these humans exist, Crixon replied. Our scouts have observed their activities from a distance. They have achieved spaceflight, developed advanced technology, and appear to be expanding outward from their home system. What makes you think they can help us? Asked Tazark. If they are so primitive that they have just achieved spaceflight, what could they possibly do against the Zephrians? Crixon hesitated before answering. Because they survived on a world that should have killed them. Any species that can evolve on a Class 12 death world must be incredibly resilient. They might have abilities we do not understand. This is madness, said another ethereal. We are talking about contacting primitives and asking them to fight our battles. We are talking about survival, Veltar said quietly. If we do nothing, we will all be dead in 6 months. What do we have to lose? The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued that it was beneath their dignity to ask for help from such a primitive species. Others worried that the humans might be just as dangerous as the Zephrians. But as the discussion went on, one fact became clear. They had no other options. Finally, Crixin called for a vote. All in favor of sending a distress signal to the Sol system. The vote was close, but it passed. Veltar felt a mixture of relief and dread as the decision was made. They were either about to find salvation, or they were about to make their situation much worse. What should we tell them? Asked Laren. The truth, Crixin replied, that we are facing extinction and we need help. We will provide them with all the information we have about the Zephrians. If they choose to help us, we will welcome them. As allies, if they choose to flee, we will not blame them. The next few hours were spent preparing the message. It had to be simple enough for a primitive species to understand, but detailed enough to convey the urgency of the situation. Included star charts, tactical data, and recordings of Zephrian attacks. Everything they could think of that might convince these unknown humans to take action as the message was prepared for transmission. Veltar found himself wondering what these humans would be like. Were they fierce warriors hardened by their hostile world? Were they wise scholars who had learned to survive through intelligence? Or were they something else entirely? The communications officer, a young Centauri named Polter, announced that the message was ready. Signal prepared for transmission to the Sol system, sir. Send it, Crixin ordered. The message shot out into space, carried by the fastest communication system the Council had ever developed. It would take weeks to reach the Sol system, and there was no guarantee that the humans would even receive it. But it was their only hope. As the representatives began to file out of the chamber, Veltar remained in his seat, staring at the star map. Somewhere out there in a small yellow system on the edge of known space lived a species that might be their salvation or their doom. The message was simple. Unknown species of Southri. The galaxy burns. We require aid against an unstoppable enemy. Coordinates attached. Time is short. Now all they could do was wait and hope that someone would answer. 3 weeks passed like a slow nightmare for the Galactic Council. Every day brought news of more worlds falling to the Zephrian advance. The insectoid monsters had consumed 2 more systems, and their bioships were spreading like a plague across the galaxy. Commander Veltar had barely slept since sending the message to the Sol system. He was reviewing the latest casualty reports when his communicator buzzed urgently. "Sir, you need to come to the command center immediately," said the voice of Lieutenant. Kexon Veltar rushed through the corridors of Kepler Prime, his heart pounding. When he reached the command center, he found the entire staff staring at their screens in shocked silence. General Crixin stood at the main display, his face pale. "Is it?" Veltar asked. "We have a contact," Crixin replied quietly. Something just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The main screen showed a vessel unlike anything in the Galactic database. It was sleek and angular, with sharp edges that seemed designed for cutting through space itself. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, with strange markings along its sides. Energy readings showed it was heavily armed, but the weapons were of unknown design. "Have they responded to our hails?" Veltar asked. "They answered immediately," Crixin said. "They want to speak with whoever sent the distress signal. Put them through." The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a face that made several staff members step backward. The creature had pale skin, dark hair, and bright blue eyes that seemed to look right through them. Its features were sharp and predatory, like a hunting animal that had learned to walk upright. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Valkyrie," the creature said in perfect galactic standard. "We received your message. You folks having some trouble?" The casual tone stunned everyone in the room. This was first contact with an unknown species, one of the most important moments in galactic history. and the human was talking like they were discussing the weather. "I am Commander Veltar of the Centauri Federation," Veltar managed to say. "We are grateful you responded to our call for help." "No problem," Morrison replied. "We're in the neighborhood anyway. Mind if we come aboard and talk about this? Face to face. My people prefer personal meetings when discussing military matters." Crixon stepped forward. "Captain Morrison, we must warn you that our enemy is extremely dangerous. The Zephrians have destroyed entire fleets. If you wish to reconsider your offer of help, we would understand." Morrison's expression changed slightly. His casual smile became something colder, more focused.
"General, we didn't come here to run."
"Away. We came here to learn about your bug problem." The way he said it made everyone uncomfortable. There was something in his voice, a confidence that seemed out of place for someone representing a primitive species. "Very well," Veltar said. "You may dock at Bay 7. We will prepare a full briefing." An hour later, the human delegation arrived. At the council chambers, there were 5 of them, all walking with the same predatory grace as their captain. They moved like hunters, their eyes constantly scanning the room, noting exits and potential threats. Morrison introduced his team. "This is Dr. Lisa Park, our xenobiologist, Lieutenant Commander Alex Stone, tactical officer, and my security detail." Dr. Park was a small woman, with bright green eyes and an intense expression. She immediately began studying the alien representatives. With scientific curiosity, pulling out a small device to take readings. "Fascinating," she said, pointing the device at Liron. "Your energy signature suggests you exist partially in another dimension. How does that affect your neural processing?" Liron looked uncomfortable. That is not usually discussed in formal meetings." "Sorry," Park said, not looking sorry at all. "I'm just excited to meet so many new species. We've theorized about extra-dimensional beings for years." Lieutenant Commander Stone was studying the tactical displays that showed the Zephrian advance. His expression was cold and calculating as he absorbed the information. "Tell us about these Zephrians, Morrison," said, settling into his chair. "From what we can see, they're some kind of hive mind species. Biological technology, fast breeding, what else?" General Crixon activated the holographic display. "They are utterly ruthless. They consume all biological matter on the worlds they conquer. They adapt to our weapons faster than we can develop new ones. Their bioships heal themselves and evolve during battle. The humans watch the footage of Zephrian attacks in silence. The aliens expected them to show fear or horror at the images of consumed worlds and destroyed fleets. Instead, the humans seemed to be taking notes." "Interesting," Stone said quietly. "They use a distributed command structure. Each ship has partial autonomy, but follows the hive directives. That's actually a weakness." "How can that be a weakness?" asked Tizark. "Their coordination is perfect." "Perfect coordination means predictable patterns," Stone replied. "If you understand how they think, you can anticipate their moves." Dr. Park looked up from her readings. The hive mind structure suggests they have limited individual creativity. They rely on collective problem solving, which means they probably struggle with truly novel situations. The aliens stared at her in shock. No one had ever suggested that the Zephrians had any weaknesses at all. "How do you know this?" Veltar asked. "We've dealt with hive minds before," Morrison said casually. "Not spacefaring ones, but the principles are the same. On our world, we call them things like ant colonies or bee swarms. Study the behavior, patterns, find the control mechanisms, and exploit them." "You compare the Zephrians to insects?" Loran asked, her voice barely a whisper. "They are insects," Dr. Park said matter-of-factly. "Highly evolved ones, but still insects. Their social structure, their reproduction methods, their communication systems, it's all based on terrestrial hive species, just scaled up. The way she discussed the galaxy's most feared enemy was disturbing. These humans talked about the Zephrians like they were a minor pest problem." Captain Morrison Crixon said carefully, "We have lost thousands of ships to these creatures. Our best military minds have been unable to find a solution." "Ouch. What makes you think you can succeed where we have failed?" Morrison's smile returned, but it was different now. Colder, more predatory. "General, with respect, you've been thinking about this all wrong. You're trying to fight them like they're just another military opponent, but they're not. They're an infestation, and you know how to deal with infestations, Veltar asked. It's what we do best, Morrison replied. On our world, we've been dealing with hostile life forms for millions of years. Everything on Earth wants to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. We learned to be very good at making things extinct. The room fell silent. The casual way Morrison talked about extinction made everyone uncomfortable. How many ships did you bring? Crixon asked. Just the one, Morrison replied. We're scouts. Our job is to assess the situation and report back to command. One ship. Tazark's crystal body rang with disbelief. You came to fight the Zephrians with one ship? We came to study them, Stone corrected. The fighting comes later, after we understand what we're dealing with. Dr. Park finished her scans and put away her device. We'll need biological samples from the Zephrians, combat footage from multiple angles, detailed analysis of their ship construction and communication methods. Everything you have. And then, Veltar asked. Morrison stood up, his team following his lead. Then we go home and tell our people what we've learned. If they decide the Zephrians are a threat to human space, we'll deal with it. Decide the Zephrians are not a threat? Aliran asked. Morrison's expression became unreadable. Then we'll wish you luck and go back to our own business. As the humans prepared to leave, Veltar felt a strange mixture of hope and fear. These creatures from the rim of space were unlike anything he had ever encountered. They showed no fear of the Zephrians, no awe of the Council's technology or authority. They looked at the galaxy's greatest threat, like it was a problem to be solved. Captain Morrison, Veltar called out as they reached the door. How long before we know your people's decision? Morrison paused and looked back. Not long. We're efficient when it comes to making decisions about survival. After the humans left, the council chamber remained silent for a long time. Finally, Crixon spoke what they were all thinking. I don't think we contacted primitives asking for help. I think we contacted apex predators and offered them prey. For days after Captain Morrison left, the answer came. Commander Veltar was eating his morning meal when every alarm on Kepler Prime began screaming at once. He ran to the command center expecting to see Zephrian ships on the scanners. Instead, he found something far more shocking. 40-7 ships had just appeared in the system. They had come out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their arrival so precisely timed that it looked like a single massive vessel materializing all at once. The ships were all different sizes and shapes, but they shared the same dark predatory design as Morrison's scout ship. Are they hostile? Daletar asked the scanning officer. Unknown, sir. They're not targeting us, but they're definitely armed. Very heavily armed. General Crixon arrived moments later, still fastening his uniform. What's the situation? The humans are back, Veltar replied. And they brought friends. The communications panel lit up with an incoming message. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the screen, but now he wore a more formal uniform with different rank markings. Commander Veltar, this is Captain Morrison. We've brought some colleagues who are interested in your bug problem. Request permission to establish a joint command center on your station. Permission granted, Veltar said quickly. How many people are we talking about? About 1,500, Morrison replied casually. Don't worry, we brought our own supplies. 1,500. The number made Veltar's head spin. Humans had brought a full battle fleet in response to their distress call. Over the next several hours, human shuttles began arriving at Kepler Prime. The aliens watched in fascination as the humans set up their equipment with military precision. They worked in perfect coordination, like parts of a single organism. The human commander arrived. On the last shuttle, Admiral Kate Sullivan was a tall woman with gray hair and cold blue eyes. She moved with the same predatory grace as all the humans, but there was something more about her. It's an aura of absolute authority that made even veteran military officers. Step aside, Admiral Sullivan, Veltar said as he greeted her. Welcome to Kepler Prime. We are honored by your presence, Commander Sullivan replied with a slight nod. Let's skip the formalities. We have work to do. The Joint Command Center was established in the station's main conference room. The humans had brought their own equipment, strange devices that interfaced perfectly with the alien technology. Within hours, they had access to every database on the station. Sullivan took her place at the head of the table, the council. Representatives arranged around her. The change in dynamics was subtle but unmistakable. Somehow, without anyone officially deciding it, the human admiral had become the leader of the joint operation. "Let's review what we know," Sullivan said, activating a holographic display. The Zephrians are a hive mind species that has consumed 17 systems in the past 6 months. They use biological technology, adapt quickly to new threats, and show no interest in negotiation. That is correct, Crixon confirmed. Their fleet consists of approximately 3,000 bioships of various sizes, Sullivan continued. They reproduce by consuming organic matter and can construct new vessels in a matter of days. A new human officer stepped forward. Colonel. Ryan Hayes was a stocky man with scarred hands and a grim expression. "We've analyzed the combat footage you provided. The Zephrians fight like a swarm, but they're not random. They follow specific behavioral patterns." "What kind of patterns?" asked Liren. "Feeding patterns," Hayes replied. "They prioritize targets based on biological mass, population density, and strategic value. They're not just conquerors, they're farmers. They cultivate whole systems for harvest." The casual way he discussed the consumption of entire worlds made the aliens uncomfortable. But Hayes wasn't finished. "This gives us several advantages. First, we can predict their next targets. Second, we can manipulate their behavior by controlling what they see as valuable. Third, we can exploit their feeding instincts against them." "How?" Veltar asked. Hayes smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "We make them hungry for something that will kill them." Another human officer joined the discussion. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Grace Miller was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice, but her words were anything but gentle. "We've developed several biological weapons specifically designed to target hive mind species," she said calmly. "The Zephrians' greatest strength, their interconnected biology, is also their greatest weakness. A pathogen designed to target their neural link could destroy their entire collective consciousness." "You're talking about genocide," Zerk said, his crystal body resonating with shock. "Talking about pest control," Dr. Miller corrected. "The Zephrians chose to be pests when they decided to consume other sapient species." The alien representatives exchanged worried glances. These humans discussed the complete destruction of another species like it was a routine medical procedure. "What about capture?" Liren asked. "Could we take prisoners, study them, perhaps find a way to communicate?" "Why would we want to?" A new voice. Commander Danny Ford was a compact man with alert eyes and quick movements. "They've already shown us what they are. They're a cancer. You don't negotiate with cancer, you cut it out." "But surely there must be some way to coexist," Veltar protested. "Some compromise that doesn't require complete extermination." Admiral Sullivan leaned forward, her expression patient but firm. "Commander, let me ask you something. Out on your world, do you have any species that survive by consuming other sapient beings?" "No, of course not. Such creatures would be considered monsters." "Exactly. Zephrians are monsters by any civilized standard. They cannot be reasoned with, reformed, or contained. They exist only to consume. The only moral response is to stop them permanently." The logic was cold and brutal, but the aliens found it difficult to argue with. The Zephrians had shown no mercy, no willingness to negotiate, no recognition of other species as anything but food. "What is your plan?" Crixon asked. Sullivan activated another display showing a detailed tactical map. "We're going to hit them where they live, not just their forward fleets, but their breeding colonies, their resource bases, their entire infrastructure." "Full-scale invasion?" Veltar asked. "An extermination campaign," Sullivan corrected. "We're going to systematically destroy every Zephrian nest, every bioship, every breeding queen. When we're finished, they'll be extinct." The scope of the plan was staggering. The humans weren't just planning to defeat the Zephrians. They were planning to wipe them from existence. "How many ships will you need?" asked a Nautiloid representative. "We brought enough," Sullivan replied. "Our 47 vessels are more than sufficient for the task." But the Zephrians have thousands of ships, Tazark protested. How can you possibly succeed with so few? Lieutenant Colonel Sam Brooks, the fleet's coordination specialist, answered. Because we're not fighting them ship to ship. We're fighting them brain to brain, cut off the head, and the body dies. The hive mind is their strength, but it's also their critical weakness. Leaded Dr. Ben Carter, the fleet's combat psychologist. They can't function as individuals. Disrupt their collective consciousness, and they become helpless. The aliens were beginning to understand the human approach. It wasn't just warfare. It was surgical destruction of an entire species' ability to function. When do we begin? Veltar asked. We've already begun, Sullivan replied. Captain Nina. Torres is leading reconnaissance missions to map Zephrian positions. Colonel Hayes is preparing our biological weapons. Dr. Miller is synthesizing the pathogens. We'll be ready to move within the week. And our role? Crixon asked. Stay out of our way, Sullivan said bluntly. Your ships are too valuable to risk. And frankly, you don't have the stomach for what we're about to do. The meeting continued for several more hours, but the aliens found themselves increasingly silent. They listened as the humans discussed the complete destruction of another species with the same calm professionalism they might use to plan a construction project. As the session ended, Veltar found himself walking beside Admiral Sullivan. Admiral, may I ask you something? Of course. Your people seem very experienced at this kind of warfare. Have you fought hive minds before? Sullivan paused and looked at him. Commander, on our world, we've been fighting for survival for millions of years. We've driven dozens of species to extinction, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. The Zephrians are just the latest predator that made the mistake of hunting us, and if they hadn't threatened human space, they had only consumed alien worlds. Sullivan's expression became unreadable. Then we would have watched from a distance and learned from their techniques. But they sent scouts toward our territory that made them our problem. As Admiral Sullivan walked away, Veltar realized the truth. The humans hadn't come to save the galaxy out of compassion or alliance. They had come to eliminate a threat to their own survival. The Galactic Council was just a convenient excuse for doing what they were already planning to do. He looked out at the human fleet. Dark ships waiting in formation like sleeping predators. Soon they would wake up, and the galaxy would see what Earth's apex predators could do when they decided something needed to die. The attack on the Altera system began at exactly 0800 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Commander Veltar watched from the command center on Kepler Prime as Admiral Sullivan's fleet moved into position. The human ships advanced in perfect formation, their dark hulls cutting through space like hunting knives. All units, this is Admiral Sullivan, came the voice over the communications channel. Operation Exterminate is now active. Remember, we are not here to fight a war. We are here to remove a pest problem. The Zephrian forces and Altera numbered over 200 bioships, including 3 massive hive carriers. The alien observers expected a prolonged battle with heavy casualties on both sides. What they witnessed instead changed their understanding of warfare forever. The humans didn't charge in like traditional fleets. Instead, they spread out across the system in small groups, each targeting specific Zephrian vessels with surgical precision. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Brooks coordinated the attacks from his command ship, his voice calm and professional as he directed the slaughter. Alpha Group, target the feeder ships at coordinates 7-7-Mark-4. Beta Group, take out the scout. Swarm near the third planet. Gamma Group, prepare for hive carrier assault. This is Captain Nina Torres leading Gamma Group, came a reply. We have visual on the primary hive carrier. Beginning infiltration protocol. Veltar watched in amazement as Torres' squadron approached the massive Zephrian vessel. Instead of attacking from the outside, the human ships actually docked with the bioship. Within minutes, internal explosions began ripping through the carrier from within. How are they doing that? Asked General Crixon, his voice filled with disbelief. Dr. Grace Miller, who was monitoring the battle from the command center, answered. Without looking up from her instruments, we developed specialized boarding gear that lets our troops survive inside Zephrian bioships. The toxic atmosphere that kills most species is just an inconvenience to humans with proper equipment. Right. The internal defenses? Laron protested. The bioships are filled with warrior drones and defensive organisms. Yes, they are, Miller agreed. But humans evolve fighting much worse things than overgrown insects. On the tactical display, the humans were systematically dismantling the Zephrian fleet. But it wasn't random destruction, Commander Danny. Ford was leading precision strikes against specific parts of each bioship, targeting what appeared to be nerve centers and communication nodes. Ford, here, came his voice over the channel. I've reached the primary neural cluster on target 7. Beginning synaptic disruption. Moments later, an entire group of Zephrian ships suddenly stopped moving. They drifted in space like dead things, their bioluminescent hulls dimming to black. Excellent work, Ford, Admiral Sullivan's voice replied. That's how we do it. Cut. The strings and the puppets fall down? Dr. Ben Carter, the fleet's combat psychologist, explained what they were witnessing. The Zephrians rely completely on their hive mind for coordination. Destroy the neural links in key ships, and you can paralyze entire squadrons. But how do you know which ships contain the neural clusters? Dazark asked. We studied them, Carter replied simply. Hive minds follow predictable patterns. It's the command? Ships always position themselves in specific formations relative to the worker ships. It's basic animal behavior. The battle continued for 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The humans moved through the Zephrian fleet like apex predators hunting prey. They targeted the right ships, disrupted the right systems, and eliminated threats with ruthless efficiency. The alien observers were shocked by the human approach to combat. There was no honor, no glory, no dramatic speeches. The humans fought like exterminators dealing with an infestation. Cold, methodical, and absolutely lethal. Attention all units, came Admiral Sullivan's voice. Primary objectives secured. Beginning. Phase 2. Phase 2 was even more disturbing to watch. Instead of simply destroying the remaining Zephrian ships, the humans began capturing them. Boarding parties secured bioships that had been paralyzed by neural disruption, and began systematically harvesting biological samples. Dr. Lisa Park led one of the science teams aboard a captured hive carrier. Her voice came over the channel as she explored the alien vessel. Fascinating. The bioarchitecture is more sophisticated than we expected. These creatures are definitely evolved from a eusocial insect species, probably something similar to Earth's army ants. Any useful intelligence? Asked Admiral Sullivan. Plenty, Park replied. I'm downloading their navigation data now. We'll have the location of every Zephrian nest within 100 light-years. Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. The humans weren't just defeating the Zephrians in this system. They were gathering intelligence to hunt down every last member. Of the species, the final phase of the battle was the most shocking of all. The humans didn't simply destroy the Zephrian breeding facilities on the system's planets. They sterilized them. Orbital bombardment turned the surface of 3 worlds into glass, ensuring that no Zephrian genetic material could ever be recovered. Call clear, reported Captain Morrison from his reconnaissance ship. No life signs detected on any of the breeding worlds. Full sterilization confirmed. Excellent, Admiral Sullivan replied. Mark this system as clean and move to the next target. As the human fleet prepared to leave Altera, the alien observers tried to process what they had witnessed. In a single day, the humans had not only defeated a major Zephrian force, but had completely erased their presence from an entire star system. Admiral Sullivan Veltar said over the communications channel. That was ... impressive. But was it necessary to destroy the entire breeding population? Some of those creatures might have been non-combatants. Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen, her expression patient but firm. Commander, let me explain something about pest control. If you leave even a few breeding pairs alive, they'll repopulate within a generation. Complete eradication is the only permanent solution. But surely there could have been some other way, Lyran said weakly. Could there? Asked Dr. Carter. Let me ask you something. In all your encounters with the Zephrians, have you ever seen them show mercy? Have they ever spared a civilian population or left a world partially unconsumed? The aliens fell silent. The answer was obvious. The Zephrians chose this path when they decided to be predators, Admiral Sullivan continued. They established the rules of engagement. We're simply playing by their rules, but we're better at it. Colonel Ryan Hayes joined the conversation from his tactical station. The next target is the Vega system. Intelligence suggests it contains a major breeding, complex, and over 500 bioships. We'll hit them in 36 hours. 500 ships, Crichton asked in alarm. Are you certain 47 vessels are sufficient? More than sufficient, Hayes replied with confidence. We're not planning to fight 500 ships. We're planning to eliminate one hive mind that happens to control 500 ships? The distinction was important, and the aliens were beginning to understand it. The humans didn't see individual Zephrian vessels as separate opponents. They saw the entire species as a single organism that needed to be killed. As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the sterilized Altera system behind, Veltar found himself thinking about the future. The humans had demonstrated that they could defeat the Zephrians, but their methods were terrifying in their efficiency. They fight like machines, Tazark observed quietly. No, corrected Dr. Miller, who had overheard the comment. Machines. Follow programs. We fight like evolution. We adapt, we overcome, and we eliminate threats to our survival. The communication channel crackled with Admiral Astrolban's voice one last time before the fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Kepler Prime Command, this is Admiral Sullivan. Phase 1 complete. 17 more systems to go. We'll have this pest problem solved within the month. As the aliens sat in stunned silence, they realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. An entire species was being methodically hunted to extinction by predators who saw it as just another day's work. The Zephrians had dominated the galaxy for months, striking fear into the hearts of every civilized species. But they had made one fatal mistake. They had attracted the attention of Earth's apex predators, and now they were about to learn what it meant to be prey. The final battle began in the Zephrian home system, where the primary hive had existed for over 10,000 years. Commander Veltar watched the tactical displays with a mixture of awe and horror as General Marcus Webb positioned the human fleet for what Admiral Sullivan called the final solution. The Zephrian forces were massive. Over 3,000 bioships filled the system, including 7 Prime Queens, the largest and most dangerous vessels in their fleet. Each queen was the size of a small moon, capable of producing hundreds of warrior drones every day. The system itself contained dozens of breeding worlds, nursery stations, and genetic repositories that held the biological templates for the entire species. All units, this is General Webb aboard the EU's Predator, came the calm voice over the communications channel. Today, we end the Zephrian threat permanently. Remember, we are not here to conquer territory or capture resources. We are here to make a species extinct. The alien observers had grown used to the humans' casual approach to genocide over the past month. 17 star systems had already been cleansed of Zephrian presence. But this was different. This was the complete and final destruction of an entire species. Webb, this is Admiral Sullivan, came another voice. All science teams have confirmed target priorities. We have genetic maps of every Zephrian variant, location data for all breeding facilities, and biosignatures for every queen in the system. Understood. Admiral, beginning Operation Extinction. The human fleet split into 7 attack groups, each targeting one of the Prime Queens simultaneously. But they didn't attack directly. Instead, they began a complex dance around the Zephrian forces, drawing them into specific positions. Dr. Rachel Stone, the fleet's evolutionary biologist, explained the strategy from her position on the command ship. We're using their own instincts against them. The queens will always position themselves to protect the maximum number of breeding facilities. We're herding them into kill zones. How can you be certain they'll react as predicted? Asked Liren, who had grown pale watching the humans work. Because they're insects, Dr. Stone replied matter-of-factly. Highly evolved insects, but still bound by the same behavioral patterns that govern all eusocial species. They can't help but follow their programming. The first phase of the attack confirmed her words. As the human ships maneuvered through the system, the Zephrian fleet responded exactly as predicted. The queens moved to defensive positions, their escort fleets, forming protective screens around the most valuable breeding worlds. Perfect General Webb's voice came over the channel. They're exactly where we want them. All units initiate Protocol Omega. What happened next would be talked about in alien military academies for centuries. The humans didn't attack the Zephrian ships directly. Instead, they released thousands of small pods throughout the system. Each pod contained a biological weapon, specifically designed to target Zephrian neural networks. Dr. Grace Miller monitored the biological attack from her medical station. Pathogen release confirmed. The neural toxin is spreading through their communication networks. Its estimated time to complete hive mind collapse, 47 minutes. 47 minutes to kill an entire species? Taysark asked in shock. To kill? Their ability to function as a collective? Miller corrected. The individual organisms will survive for several hours longer, but they'll be completely helpless without their hive mind. The aliens watched in horror as the most feared military force in the galaxy began to fall apart. Zephrian ships started drifting aimlessly as their crew lost the ability to coordinate. The massive bioships that had terrorized civilizations, 4 millennia, became floating hulks filled with confused, dying insects. But the humans weren't finished. As the Zephrian fleet collapsed, human strike teams moved in to complete the extermination. Commander Danny Ford led boarding parties onto the Prime Queens, hunting down the last functional neural centers. Ford here, his voice came over the channel. I'm inside Queen 7's primary brain chamber, beginning final neural disruption. The aliens listened to the systematic destruction of the Zephrian command structure. Each queen fell silent one by one as human teams destroyed their capacity for thought. The creatures that had consumed entire worlds were reduced to mindless biological matter in a matter of hours. Captain Ina Torres coordinated the destruction of the breeding worlds. Her bomber squadrons moved from planet to planet, sterilizing each surface with weapons designed to destroy all biological material down to the molecular level. Planet Zeph Prime sterilized, came her report. No genetic material remaining. Moving to secondary breeding world. Planet Zeph 2 sterilized. Planetary surface converted to sterile glass. Planet Zeph 2 sterilized. All biological repositories eliminated. The reports continued for hours as the humans systematically erased every trace of Zephrian biology from their home system. They weren't just winning a war, they were committing perfect genocide. Lieutenant Reynolds Sam Brooks managed the final phase of the operation from his coordination station. All breeding facilities eliminated. All genetic repositories destroyed. All queen ships neutralized. Scanning for any remaining viable biological material. The scans took 3 hours to complete. When they were finished, Brooks made his final report. General Webb, I can confirm complete biological extinction. The Zephrian species no longer exists in any viable form. It's excellent work. All units, General Webb replied. Mark this system as permanently sterile and prepare for withdrawal, as the human fleet prepared to leave the dead system behind. Admiral Sullivan opened a channel to the alien observers on Kepler Prime. Her face appeared on the main screen, showing no emotion despite having just orchestrated the extinction of an entire species. Commander Veltar, General Crichton, she said formally, the Zephrian threat has been permanently eliminated. All active bioships have been destroyed. All breeding populations sterilized and all genetic material rendered non-viable. The species is extinct. The casual way she announced the complete destruction of another species made the aliens uncomfortable. But they couldn't deny the effectiveness of the human approach. Admiral Sullivan, Veltar said carefully, we are grateful for your assistance. The galaxy is safe because of your actions. Don't mistake our motives, Commander, Sullivan replied coldly. We didn't do this for the galaxy. We did this because the Zephrians represented a potential threat to human expansion. We eliminated them the same way we would eliminate any other pest. And now, asked General Crichton, what are your people's intentions regarding the rest of the galaxy? Sullivan considered the question for a moment before answering. That depends entirely on whether anyone else decides to become a threat to human interests. We prefer to be left alone, but we're very good at making problems disappear when they interfere with our survival. The message was clear. The humans had demonstrated their capabilities, and they expected the rest of the galaxy to remember the lesson. Dr. Rachel Stone joined the conversation from her science station. For what it's worth, you all seem like reasonable species. You recognize threats, you seek help when needed, and you don't try to consume other sapient beings.
There's
Number reason we can't coexist peacefully, and if conflicts arise? Loran asked quietly. Then we'll handle them the same way we handled the Zephrians, Stone replied simply. Humans have been solving problems through extinction for millions of years. It's what we do best. As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the empty Zephrian system behind, the aliens sat in stunned silence. They had been saved, but they had also witnessed the galaxy's most efficient killers in action. They are not our saviors, Veltar said quietly. They are the galaxy's apex predators, and they just reminded everyone what happens when you threaten their territory. General Crixon nodded slowly. Zephrians thought they were the ultimate predators. They consumed entire civilizations. Without mercy, but they made one fatal mistake. What's that? Asked Cirque. They attracted the attention of something even more dangerous than themselves. They became prey. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled in. Somewhere out in the galaxy, humanity waited and watched. They weren't conquerors or protectors. They were evolution's perfect answer to any threat, a species so dangerous that even the galaxy's most feared. Monsters couldn't survive contact with them. The Zephrians were gone, extinct down to the last molecule of genetic material. But their legacy would live on as a warning to any species foolish enough to threaten the Deathworlders from Sol-3. In the end, aliens had learned a valuable lesson about the universe. There was always a bigger predator, and sometimes that predator looked human.